We are back. We have been going for 2 hours and 35 minutes, barring the edits that will come out as a result of the technical difficulties we hit early. But we are having a lot of fun. We're talking about the sequel trilogy, which honestly I think has had more influence on the current state of Star Wars than anything else. And I think one of the things we talk a lot about, or we hear a lot about, is the not my Star Wars. I'm an OT fan, the gatekeeping that comes with that, the negativity that comes with that. And one of the things that's really important to touch base on, and we'll finish our conversation on The Last Jedi, or the Rise. I don't know why I always call it that, because it's the last movie. I think that's the problem.
Do me a personal favor.
So I need to lay a personal favor and pull back on that
and get the name right.
And get the name right at the very least. But there's a lot about the sequel trilogy that has been both really good. I mean, we talked about it before. The Force Awakens is a movie that's hard to find fault with, but it's also hard to love, right? It's a good, solid movie. Last Jedi, Nick and I both agree, the best Star Wars story, but maybe one of the hardest ones to watch because it is such a deep, personal, intimate story. And The Rise of Skywalker, which is the top non-original trilogy Rotten Tomatoes score film of the entire Star Wars saga, which just blew me away when I found
that. Give the people what they want.
Does that surprise you, Nick? What do you think about that? I mean, we didn't really dig
into it. Doesn't surprise me at all. It's exactly what we talk about on so many different levels of being chronically online as Star Wars people, being content creators, spending every day of our life talking about, thinking about, overanalyzing Star Wars. When we've talked many times, when you see the negativity, when you see all the YouTubers and the grifters and the social media people, it starts to feel like, oh, this is dark and this is heavy and this isn't fun. But then you go to Dragon Con or Celebration or San Diego Comic-Con, and guess what you don't find there? Those people. You find 60,000 people at Star Wars Celebration who are literally just excited for Star Wars and get to be together. Big nerd family reunion. That's what this is. This is, there's people out there that can complain and pitch a fit and try to turn it into money on a YouTube channel, or just talk about it because they're not monetized, but they like talking about it. But the reality is, the majority, those 86% or whatever it is on Rotten Tomatoes, are our dads and our 16-year-old daughters and somebody's cousin's wife's uncle's aunt's next door neighbor's dog that went, I went and saw it. It was fine. Cool. I'll like it online. No big deal. It's a Star Wars movie. What do you mean I have to know where that guy came? Oh, I know that guy. He's from the other one. He's the bad guy, right? Like, again, we know bad guys. We see them.
And that's a nice lead into where we're going here and what Disney Plus is doing right now. But before we get that, the last controversial piece that we need to talk about, we would be remiss if we did not discuss Rey Skywalker. Because again, the not my Luke Skywalker nerds, grifters, people making money on YouTube, being angry, have really gone after that as a concept. Now, Nick, you and I have talked about this. You and I both know people who have been either adopted or gone through a very difficult life and chose who they are. And sometimes that's as simple as a last name selection, right? I mean, think about this. This is where we are in this world right now. Your wife choosing your name is today. It's not a simple choice as perhaps it should not be. You see families, you see people, you see people who are identifying as whoever they are as people. This is a really important moment in Star Wars, and it surprises me, and I'd love your thoughts on it. Does it surprise you that people reacted the way they did to this moment of Rey after an entire trilogy of found family or not having a family, choosing to be a Skywalker?
Right. No, it doesn't surprise me at all. And I like what TW says. I feel like it's like a litmus test. I feel like if I can hear someone call Rey Palpatine, unironically, I can pretty much guess their thoughts on the character.
Right.
agency is such an important thing. You've talked about there are so many real life institutions, versions of, let's say you're adopted by a step parent, you're older and you have the option to choose, do I want to take their last name and be fully adopted, or they like, it's something that they get to do. They get to have a choice, because what that means is they get to say, this is who I am. And we all want to be able to own who we are. We all want to be able to have a voice and be heard from. And I think with Rey, it's one of those things that she's a Palpatine. And Palpatine, there's a stigma, there's a voice. And like, we see the flashbacks and the footage of her parents and what her parents did to try and protect her. Her dad wasn't like, oh yeah, I get to be, Emperor Junior. Like, he didn't want a part of that, for whatever that relationship and that situation was.
Right.
But she did not have to be stigmatized by what her name was. Your name is not who you are, because we don't get to choose our name. We don't. Right. My last name is Mielke. It's weird. It's German. It's not whatever. If you were like, hey, you get to start your life, pick a name, that's probably not what you'd pick. She had the ability to choose her name and choose who she was going to be, with power, which is something that allows her to then chart a course forward. Because if you're going to look at this galaxy where apparently Palpatines and Skywalkers are known by everybody,
right?
This is like Capulets and Montagues or whatever it is,
right?
There's power there. And she said, I'm going to choose the light side.
Yep.
She could have been known as Rey Palpatine, and she could have taken it upon herself to go, you know what? I'm going to rebrand this name in this galaxy. I'm going to show that Palpatines are not all evil dictator, emperor, whatever the hells. But what she said was, people know the Skywalker name. And that's where my alignment is, because she was also about giving hope, creating the opportunity for being a beacon and being a good person. So I am all about it.
I think I'm with you. I think I think ultimately that's what the entire story is about, if you think about it. So we talked a little bit about how The Last Jedi is the only story that kind of pulls it all back to the first one. And this is a case where if you think about it, Shmi Skywalker is just her name, right? We don't know anything about her history. Maybe we do in comics that you and I haven't read, and we're not paying attention. But she was just a nobody in the desert, much like Rey. And she was influenced by the children of this desert dweller, this nobody, Anakin Skywalker. And she was trained by them. And honestly, it makes sense. And unfortunately, again, as I pick on this movie for its various faults, it was telegraphed. It was, yes, I am a meanie. It was telegraphed. It was not a surprise at all. It was honestly, again, weird choices. Because nobody in the galaxy cares about your last name, except in this movie. The only time it's asked is during the Aki Aki festival. Right. The little one, who's played by our good friend Deborah Wilson.
The voice.
But nobody cares about last names in this galaxy. You got Greedo. You got all these. You just have names. So last name, it's not like in our world. And honestly, like you could be Nick Johnson. I wouldn't freaking care. I mean, just like it doesn't matter. However, so from a storytelling perspective, poor choice. From a story objective perspective, great choice. And I love what that means for the potential future of the Star Wars franchise. Now, one last thing that I'll say about this, and we can get into it a little bit if you'd like. As a result of the simple line of
somehow Palpatine returned,
we have gotten the Mandalorian, we've gotten the Bad Batch, which are directly connected to this issue. The guy from Lost saying dark magic secrets only the Sith knew. Okay, so now we have to tell that story. And as I texted you earlier this week, watching this movie again, after watching The Bad Batch, after learning what we've learned in things like Adam Christopher's book, the story works better. But and I will die on this hill. And if anybody in the chat wants to talk to me about it, if anybody on Twitter wants to talk to me about it, I will gladly talk about it. You should never, ever go to a major motion picture and have to have watched 22 hours of Star Wars on television or read 2 to 3 books to understand what is going on. TWK says Project Necromancer actually makes me hate Sidious more. Didn't think that was possible. Yeah, you're 100% right, TW. And in fact, much like the prequels, the story means a lot more now than it did before. That said, I'm irritated that we didn't know it before then. I guess the next generation of Star Wars fans will be like,
should have read
oh,
more
yeah,
comic books.
That makes sense. I should have read more comic books.
Yeah.
I should have read more comic books.
You foolish
Nick, what are your
man.
thoughts
More
on? I
comic
mean,
books
do you
for
feel like Disney Plus is kind of backed into a corner of having to fix this story much? So Filoni is like the fixer, right? Because he fixed the prequels. I'll put the link in this video, but where you and I talked about it, Filoni fixed the prequels. He fixed them. He did. The Clone Wars TV show fixed the prequels. Is he fixing the sequels?
He might, but he doesn't have to, is where I'm coming down on this. I'm saying Star Wars on Disney is an ATM machine. You make it, you put it out there, we're going to pay for it. We're going to continue our Disney Plus subscriptions. Guess what? You don't even have to make new stuff. I'll keep paying to watch the old stuff I've seen a million times.
Whenever I want.
That's because that's how in the tank I am for this. You keep making new stuff, I'm going to watch and consume that too. I haven't read High Republic. I am barely conversant in High Republic other than I see the names of things that my friends online tweet about. I don't know High Republic, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be there on June the 4th watching those first 2 episodes with popcorn and whiskey and all the things I need to enjoy a Star Wars.
Popcorn and whiskey. That's another shirt, TW.
That's right. Popcorn and whiskey. I don't even like popcorn, but I threw it out there anyhow. But that's what I'm going to do. And that's what Star Wars is going to do. Star Wars is going to continue marching forward. And if the choices they make along the way add to, I'm not even going to call it fixing it. I'm going to call it adding to the stories that are already laid out here.
Look at you. Like I say fixing it, you say adding to. That's a really interesting perspective.
If we get to a Janna story somewhere down the line, because we end this movie with these random loose ends that could turn into something else. Lando saying to Janna, where are you from? I don't know. Well, let's go find out. Boom. Whole story right there in front of you. We've got a Donald Glover Lando something in front of us. If it's old man Billy D. Lando sitting in front of a microphone recording Calrissian Chronicles, and then you jump cut to younger Lando Donald Glover doing a thing, great.
Let's do that.
And if it also informs the story of how he ended up in Pisana in the tank without a body, rolling around shooting people with a crossbow, great. Let's do that. It adds to the story. It doesn't have to fix the story. We're not required to fix the story. It's a matter of what are these stories going forward going to add to it? Are there things I want to see?
I think
100%. I want to see Finn as a Jedi in this Rey New Jedi Order movie.
Yeah.
I want to see some aspect of the conflict. You know, it's early. We're soft selling that movie at this point. We know Daisy's in it. We know that, you know, it's going to be, you know, about the formation of a new Jedi Order, whatever that looks like. Of course, Finn's going to be in it. There's going to be connecting points. It has to happen. But you know what? If it's not, I'm also not going to burn a couch in my damn front yard because it didn't give me the thing that I wanted.
But what you're saying, though, and this is really interesting, is the fact that every Disney Plus show, and this is where we're going from here at this point in the show, it's impacted by the sequels. Again, back to Michael Morrissey saying, it could have been it didn't have to be episode 7, 8, 9. It could have been the continuing story of the Star Wars saga. It could have been this, or it could have been that. It was beholden to. So and interestingly, if you go back and listen to this 3 hours of rambling that you and I have done, if you go back and listen to it, our biggest complaints are where it doesn't fit to what we expected. It doesn't fit to the Skywalker story that we quote unquote know. And we're in a
Mhm.
situation now as we go into the next level of Star Wars, the New Jedi Order story that will be from um, uh, 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 Chinoy. I'm going
Yeah.
to screw up her name. So
Charmaine
uh,
obeyed Chinoy.
Charmin Omid, right? With Daisy Ridley. This is going to move forward. Every Disney Plus story right now is influenced by the sequel trilogy. Is that good or is that not good? Because
I,
we're in a world where there are enough people who hate Disney Star Wars, quote unquote, Disney Star Wars, that it may be causing a rift and an issue.
to the people that hate Disney Star Wars because it says Disney Star Wars, go the hell away. I don't care. I don't want to
Right.
hear from you anymore. Your opinions don't matter. You hate it because there are women in it. You hate it because there are people of color in it. You hate it because it's not Punisher Boba Fett cutting people's heads off and killing more people in Order 66. Your
Right.
opinion does not matter. It's not valid here. You can go away. We're done.
Yep.
We're moving on. I think when we move outside of the sequel trilogy and the things that are coming, this is what I love about New Jedi Order. We're outside of our skis at this point. We are beyond. Leia's gone, Luke's gone, Han's gone. We've got Chewie. That's what we have left. We have Chewie, we have R2, we have 3PO. We have these characters that are left that can carry the legacy forward, can be a part of the story. I've said a million times, I love the book Ender's Game. There's something in Ender's Game called the Speaker for the Dead. That's what R2D2 is. R2D2 was there at the beginning. That scene in Rise where he's there with Leia when she dies, bookends, beginning and end, telling the story, going forward. That's good. That's good news because we get to move beyond the expectations of the old crusty farts like you and me who grew up with it in the 70s and 80s. And we get to go, cool. This laid the entire foundation for everything that we've got up to this point. Where are we going now? I get to buckle up. I get to take my popcorn and whiskey and I get to enjoy it.
And I think, listen, I just recently watched Three Body Problem on Netflix, right? A beautifully done science fiction story. And again, Irving Kershner doesn't call it science fiction. He calls it a fairy tale, which it really, really is. However, storytelling is different. And you and I have talked about this on ATG Live a number of times. In 1977, the rebels were the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
In 2024, the rebels are terrorists.
Right.
Are terrorists good guys? Well, in some cases, yes. In some cases, the gray area exists. So as we tell stories today, we need to take into account the change of expectation for who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. Andor is a great example of that. Andor, if you took Rogue One, which is, by the way, the most, if you were to just randomly select 20 Star Wars fans on social media, ask them their favorite Disney era Star Wars movie, it's going to be Rogue One.
That's it.
It's 15 out of 20 times, right?
Yep.
And it's a phenomenal movie. But the fact that it starts with the lead rebel, Cassian Andor, shooting his own guy to make sure they can continue the mission. Wow. Black and white does not exist anymore. And so I don't know how we got here from what we were saying before. However, what it means is, to me, is that storytelling has changed. The expectation of what a story is has changed. And people who want Luke Skywalker as the White Knight coming in and saving the galaxy, they're left in the dust of 1990 and 2000 and 2010. That's a different world now. And everything that Disney Plus is doing, if you think about it, I mean, even Ahsoka is not a clean yes or no, on or off, 1 or 0 Jedi. Ezra, not a simple Jedi. So, and I think that's what's expected of stories now. The expectation is that your story is not a good guy wears white, bad guy wears black. It's not that simple anymore.
It's deeper than that. Art is a product of your time. We see George Lucas writing Star Wars in the early to mid 70s. What is he writing about? He's writing about Nixon. He's writing about Vietnam. He's writing about, all these things that are
I
going
mean,
on at that time.
the prequels were George Bush.
George Bush, 100%.
Right.
The prequels are George Bush. You keep coming forward, we get, and it may not be a direct political narrative, but it's narratives of inclusion. It's narratives of going, this is a bigger universe than just a bunch of white guys and the one woman in the entire story. Or by the time you get to Empire, there's one black guy too.
Right.
We knew that, you knew James Earl Jones was the voice of Darth Vader, but, it was a toss up if, you considered that the black character. Okay, there's 2 black characters in Star Wars by the time you get halfway through the first trilogy.
Right.
But it becomes art of any kind, not TV, not movies, paintings, drawings, writing, whatever it is. Art is a reflection of the time that you're in, because the people that are creating that art are a product of the life they live, the circumstances, the environment that they're surrounded by. And so we're going to continue to see that be a part of the stories we get. So we get Andor stories talking about rebellion that reflects real life news and stories that we have going on. You have Ahsoka stories where it's not cut and dry, who's good, who's bad, what's black and white. That's not the world we live in anymore. And part of that comes from the same social media that we both champion and decry. Because you know what we don't have? We don't have a 24-hour news cycle anymore. We have an instantaneous news cycle. It's shoot first and ask questions later. I just want to report the story. Then I'll come back and follow up with facts. And we also get to know the world has shrunk because of that same social media. It used to be, oh crap, we didn't know about the stuff that was going on in the Middle East with Israel and Palestine and Syria and whatever else is happening.
And now, whether we like it or not, we have to address it.
We have to address it, and it has to be right there. So art is going to be the mirror that reflects those kinds of things coming at us. And Star Wars is no different, because the people that write that are human beings that live in our world. They have always done that.
And people don't want to admit that. Star Wars has always reflected our world. And that's difficult for the grifters and the people who are trying to find and trying to bring things back to a negative perspective want to go on. So Nick, let me throw a couple quick fire questions at you, and we can talk about, and then we'll wrap this up. I mean, I think this has been a great conversation. I feel much better about my position on the Rise of Skywalker and others. I feel like I've got it out there. I can breathe easy. But
my first question, to finally be able to sleep tonight.
I know I'll sleep like a baby tonight.
Since 2019, you've been waiting.
I've been just dying to share. First question for you is: can the fan base be fixed? Will it come around to Star Wars as it exists today?
This is my Matt. This is for you. This is also my get off my lawn moment. The fan base doesn't have to be fixed. The assholes that are complaining can go the hell away. We don't need you. There's not room for you here. If you can't have fun, if you don't recognize that if you don't like it, nobody's forcing you to watch it. This isn't Clockwork Orange. We don't have little things propping your eyeballs up while you're tied to a chair. It's Star Wars, and it's entertainment, and it's fun. And if you don't like it, please go away. Go find something that makes you happy. It could be Field and Stream magazine. It could be old Bill Dance fishing videos. I don't care what it is. Go somewhere, find the thing that makes you happy, and stop standing here pitching a fit about something you don't like that nobody's forcing you to watch. And
I think I'm gonna start a Bob Ross, anti-Bob Ross fandom, and just see what happens.
Just pitch I hate these damn trees.
Happy little trees, my ass.
Those trees got to pay bills. Those trees don't get free health care. Fuck those trees. Whatever. That's it.
Yeah.
It's movie. Matt's it. This is it. Matt, my man. Matt from Enid. They're movies. It's TV shows. It's Space Wizards for kids. It's fun. It's enjoyable. This is the thing. We don't have to fix the fandom. The fandom that loves Star Wars, the ones that are fans that enjoy it, they're there. And we see you and we love you and we hope you're hanging out with us. We hope you're hanging out with the other positive Star Wars podcasters that we know that live in this space. Don't give in to the clickbait. Look at the sources. Look at, where these stories are coming from. Same thing you do with your news. If it's from CNN, you're probably fine. If it's from East India World America Today, there's probably some questions you need to ask before you read the story. But that's just it. The fandom doesn't need to be fixed. The fandom is there. I think what the fandom needs to do, and this is another great thing from the Rise of Skywalker, the fandom needs to remember there's more of us. Again,
Right.
that narrative is right there in front of our faces. When you show up with your people, people have each other's back. We saw it with Potathon. The community comes together, raises money for causes that matter.
Yep.
This is what fandom is. So no, if you're asking me, I don't think the fandom needs to be fixed. I think the dickheads need to go away, but I think the fandom is going to
But they won't. And I think that that's the important
and
thing
they
to
won't,
remember
and
is
that's
they
fine.
won't.
But you know what we can do?
Yep.
We can ignore them. We can tune them out, because kind of like a fire that gets oxygen, take it away, that fire is going to eventually die.
See, that's where I slightly disagree with you. Is I don't think the fire will ever die, and that's the problem. And I think it's just a matter of learning how to deal with it. I guess the last question is
Sorry for Matt. Star Wars. Fuck them trees.
Yeah. The last question I think I have, and which will wrap up this conversation, which has gone on for over 3 hours. Thank you everybody for hanging out with us. Those
Yes,
have been with us. Thank you. This has been
fun.
great. Make sure to join us on Thursday nights, where we do our full ATG live show at about an hour 15 of Star Wars news, guests, and conversation, your comments, etc. Stuff like this, absolutely. But Nick, I think the last question I have is, and I have an answer as well, but I'd love your thoughts first.
No.
How have the Star Wars sequels changed Star Wars forever? Star Wars was done in 1983. It was done again in 2005.
Yeah.
How will Star Wars ever be? Where does Star Wars go from here? Maybe that's the question.
Well, and I think that's great, because it goes back to one of the questions that I had early on, which is, is there still this adherence to trilogies? We have the Rey movie in front of us. I'm certain that movie is being presented to us as a one-off movie. Great.
I hope so.
The James Mangold Beginning of the Force movie, one-off movie. Great. I don't think we have to be married to trilogies. If you give them to me, I'm still going to watch them, because I'm that guy. This is Star Wars. What are we talking about? I think Star Wars goes from here into a place that is a continually expanding galaxy, pun intended, because yes, we talk about the galaxy far, far away, but also the galaxy that we are currently in. The opportunity for stories and content is basically limitless.
Yep.
Anything in print, comic books, novels, graphic novels, art books, behind the scenes, all the crap that we love, animation, a world, somebody puts the meme up on Twitter about every other week. If you were able to greenlight anything at Star Wars, what would you do? My answer so far has been a Clone Wars style animated series with the original trilogy cast between Empire through the other side of Return of the Jedi. Give me that style with those characters. What are they up to? Chasing Han, running from Vader. Give me those stories. Movies, great. Make them. I'll go to the theater and I'll watch them. It's about the only thing I go to the theater for anymore.
Yep.
TV shows, make it easy. Put it in my home. What the sequels have done for what Star Wars is coming up is it's continued to show us that if the idiots like you and me aren't super into it, guess what? There's still 86% of rotten people on Rotten Tomatoes who are going to pay that movie and go and watch it. So for right now, that ATM is still printing those dollars. So it's still going to be there, and the merchandise and the theme parks and the tie-ins and all the other things. So my thing is saddle up, let's ride.
I think it ultimately comes down to the fact that Star Wars had maxed out its universe in 1983 at the end of Return of the Jedi. We thought that was it.
Yep.
It then expanded. It grew a ring, if you will, sort of like on a tree, right? Mm-hmm. With the prequels. And suddenly we had that story. The sequels have now created this additional layer of Star Wars, which, whether you don't have to like the sequels. If you don't like the sequels, then don't watch Disney Plus and shut the hell up. Right. Because the sequels and the Disney era of Star Wars are its own thing. And you can watch it or not. I have not liked the Metallica album since Load or Reload.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I don't have to listen to the new one. I don't have to listen.
Nobody's
I can
forcing you.
still blast Master of Puppets in the car and be completely happy. So I think we're in a situation where if you don't like the current Star Wars, that's fine. But be happy that Star Wars still exists and it's still relevant enough. And you know what? The next Metallica album might be amazing. And Metallica is still touring because of that album. I
Right.
get to no, I don't love Death Magnetic. I'm sorry, GWK. I do not like that album. But because of that, it's relevant to a new audience, which keeps it going and will keep it going for my children and hopefully my children's children. So Matthew says we should call this episode Not My Star Wars so that we control the trolls. You know what, Matt? I think that's a great idea. I think that's what we'll call this podcast. But we are coming to the end of this conversation about the sequels. We've spoken for over 3 hours. I think this is the longest Around the Galaxy in history. We've been doing this for a show for 5 years, and I've had so much fun. And honestly, I could probably talk another 2 or 3 hours. But Nick,
That's right.
any final comments on the sequel trilogy as we come to the end of this amazing and fun conversation? And to those of you who are watching and listening live, thank you so much. And if you're listening on the replay, thank you so much for hanging out. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share.
Yep.
We have some
Leave us a
amazing
review on
shows coming.
iTunes. We'd love for you to do that.
That would be cool. Sure.
Yeah, that would be cool. We haven't had
You know
any
what?
new reviews.
Leave
in
us a
while.
review on iTunes and then send it to at ATGcast. Then we'll send you something. I got some cool stickers here ready
Got
to
some
go.
prizes we can send.
Sure.
Final thoughts. My final thought is Star Wars is good. Check it out. Watch these movies. These movies are great. All 3 of them. And despite the problems that Pete has with Rise, it's the most rewatchable of the 3. I'm being honest. It moves. It's enjoyable. There is good stuff in there. Yes, you can nitpick things apart. We all can. That's a part of the deal. But it's good storytelling, even if it's not exactly the story we wanted, even if it's not exactly the storyteller we wanted. Because, yes, I want Rian Johnson to do all 3. One of my biggest critiques of this sequel trilogy is I wish that we had had a singular voice that created these 3 movies. We didn't. I can't change that. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to enjoy it. And if it's not my thing, I won't watch it. Tried to watch Resistance 3 times. Made it through the 2nd episode 3 times. Haven't watched it anymore. It's just not my thing.
I think
not mad about it. It's just not my thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think one of the things that was great for me to go back and look at this was it forced me to go back and look at Rise of Skywalker and understand that more than Force Awakens and more than The Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker is driving the content that we're getting on Disney Plus right now, and the content that we'll probably get for the next several years, so that we can, you know, give an answer to J.J. Abrams' really oversimplified, childish.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
We will be doing that for the next several years. But you know what? I think this time, 3 years from now, 2 years from now, it will all make sense. And I think we'll be very happy with what we have. But everybody who hung out with us tonight, thank you so much. This has been over 3 hours of just, I feel like therapy. I feel like I'm good. I feel like I'm finally ready to move on. I'm ready for the Rey movie. I'm ready for the Acolyte. I'm ready for whatever comes down the pike. Make sure to join us on Thursday nights for all the Star Wars news, your comments and conversation, your phone calls at 504-321-1301. What is it? What's the number?
1501.
Is it? Okay.
You were right there.
I was right. I was very close.
Hi, I'm holding for General Hugs.
So leave a message, come back to us, and we will see you on Thursday nights with all the latest Star Wars news and information. Nick, thank you so much for doing this with me. This was a lot of fun. I feel like
So much fun.
Talking about the sequels has been something we've wanted to do for a while. And again, there's this weird sort of, I don't know, it's like you have to be sort of mindful of what you say because of the way social media is. But I think this is, and again, it's at the end of really, you've heard my feelings on Rise of Skywalker, on all 3 movies. If you disagree with me, that's awesome. I am surprised that such a high percentage love Rise of Skywalker as their favorite movie, but I'm so happy that they are here and that they are
Yeah,
part of this
makes
family.
me happy for you.
And so we're in good shape there. So Nick, I will wrap this up by saying, as I always do, may the force be with you.
Always.